Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm Shannon Vieira with the Greater Statesville Chamber, and we have a great, our special guest today on Business During Hours. We have Congressman Patrick McHenry, who is our U.S. representative, House representative for 10th District. So I'm going to start the question off with, what is the 10th District?
That's a great question, Shannon. So thank you. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for what you're doing at the Chamber. The Chamber is absolutely vital for our community. And chambers across our state do such great work of linking up local businesses to community leaders and governmental leaders. And so thank you, Shannon, for what you're doing for the Statesville Chamber and for Iredell County. So I'm on the other side of the lake. I live in Lincoln County. My wife and 2 kids live here in Lincoln County. And I've previously represented half of Iredell County a few years ago. But this is the 4th time they've redrawn the district since I've been in office. And now the 10th district comprises Lincoln County, Catawba County, just to the north of it, Iredell, keep going north to Yadkin, Surrey, Stokes, and Rockingham counties, wow, and part of Forsyth. So this is dramatically different than what we've previously seen with districts. So for those basically Statesville and North, at the time I represented the southern half of Iredell County, Virginia Fox represented your piece of Iredell. And so I took in part of her district and she took in part of my district with this redistricting. And so it is dramatically changed, but great to be back with folks in Iredell County. Always loved the county, always have loved engaging with the people. And so, it feels like coming home.
That's great. Well, tell us what's happening up in Washington. There's a lot of things going on right now. It's an election year for the president, so this is always a big time in Washington. So give us a short little rundown of what's happening.
Well, look, everything's caught up in the presidential election, and so that's typical, right? Every 4 years, but this year more so. Right. This president has an intensified response on both the left and the right compared to previous presidents. And so the response in Washington is more intense. So right now, what we're trying to get done is another COVID relief package like we did at the CARES Act back in March. That has gotten caught up in really nasty partisanship. And it's nasty partisanship because we're 3 weeks before the presidential election. We should have had this deal done back in March, but for the fact that Speaker Pelosi wanted a $3 trillion spending plan, and the White House wanted to have something shy of $1 trillion. What economists have told us and the Federal Reserve have told us is the smaller number is it would do the trick. And what my Democrat colleagues want is a lot of additional items that have nothing to do with COVID, but give them the opportunity to get new bills signed into law and new spending programs to help ailing states, like a lot of the blue states were in economic trouble, and in getting money for them would help bail them out given the tough times and given their structural problems. So there's a lot going on related to that, but nothing good right now. I think we'll get it worked out in November or December. Regardless of the presidential election or any election outcome.
Yeah, we've been following that package and noticed, it's had some trouble getting through. So we hope that it does, because I know our business community still needs help and is still looking. We're kind of looking now to the winter months and what this virus might do to our businesses, and hopefully we can get through it.
Right.
What other things besides? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But to that point, we had in the CARES Act back in March, a bipartisan bill that we used the best information we had at the time. And we designed these programs like the PPP program to give economic relief to those small businesses so they could keep their employees employed. And so we use small businesses as the means to support those employees of small businesses. And that was the purpose of it, is not to enrich the small business person, but to keep their employees employed. And I think it largely worked. now the reason why we need another relief package is we need to have additional dollars for healthcare and testing. We need to have relief for small businesses, especially those that are still dealing with onerous shutdowns by the government. You think of restaurants, you think of gyms, you think of folks that are not as tech enabled in how they do their business compared to how we're communicating now. I mean, it's one thing to communicate digitally, but you can't eat a meal digitally. You have to physically get it. And so we have to make sure that we get relief to those folks and those that are out of work through no fault of their own, but because their industries have been hard hit. I think that plus getting children back in school in a safe manner, those things will help the economy quite well. But I think the issue of testing, treatment, therapeutics, and a vaccine, those are the things that I think are necessary over the coming months for us to get back to some sense of normal economic life.
I'll put you on the spot. Do you think that 501c6s will be included in the next round?
I doubt it. I mean, they did such a dumb job with that language, and it impaired a lot of small businesses and those representing small businesses. Local chambers of commerce should have been included, and it got caught up in really some bad negotiating over in the Senate, sadly.
Well, I just thought I would ask.
No, it's really important.
Just for people that don't know, that are listening, that the chamber is a 501c6. So I would say 95% of the chambers, unless they have a foundation that's a 501c3 and they could have some of those funds, were, like you said, excluded from the payroll protection program. So, and I don't think I've met a single chamber that hasn't had to rework their structure because of that. So it was unfortunate, but we're still strong and we're still working hard no matter what. That's what chambers do. So we are looking forward to navigating through the rest of these waters to get past it and get into 2021.
And that's what should have happened back in March, but unfortunately, it's bad negotiating over in the Senate.
Right. Well, we will continue to work hard. What else is going on besides hopefully getting the next COVID relief package through? Anything else you want to share with our listeners? Well,
a couple of things. I think you think about our manufacturing supply chain. China has been intent on benefiting themselves economically, and as all countries do, right? And we have helped them through bad public policy, through bad trade policy. We've enabled them to take vital supply chains out of the United States and take it to China. I've got legislation on personal protective equipment, PPE. You think about masks and gowns and things of that sort that we didn't have a supply of in March. And the Chinese had their own problems and they wanted to keep it in China. And so that meant our supplier of that was not there to supply us. That raises huge issues of economic, health, and national security, frankly. So what we have to do is reorient our supply chain back to the United States. And it is not just a question of economics, it's a question of national security and health security to make sure that we're able to do that. And so thankfully we have some bipartisan cooperation there, but we have to have a very different view of China now in light of this virus and in light of their response in this virus. They're lying about it. They're using the World Health Organization for their political outcomes in denial. And what this wrought to the world. But for us, we've got to learn these lessons. And if we do not learn these lessons, we're going to be economically disadvantaged for generations to come. So that's what I'm working on. And a number of us on both sides of the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats, are interested in this same zone of making sure we change that. If we do that, I think we'll be better off as a country and safer and more secure.
Very good. What other projects are you working on there right now besides those two?
Well, it's engaging in the community and making sure that this newly drawn 10th district, that I understand what's happening in communities across the counties that I hope to represent, and making sure that I'm tapped in there. I've got a great staff who's focused on constituent service, and they've been doing that day in and day out. Even in the midst of the pandemic, they're deeply engaged in making sure that we coordinated with local businesses who are trying to supply the government with much needed help for whether it's masks or other areas for fighting this virus, and making sure we're tapped in for small businesses and being responsive to small businesses and helping them. While at the same time, I've got my policy role as a lead Republican on the House Financial Services Committee, dealing with the financial markets, the Federal Reserve, and banking and credit union regulators to make sure that we don't have any we don't have a financial crisis as a result of this health pandemic. Thankfully, we don't. But this is a health pandemic that has created an economic pandemic or economic challenge, severe challenge that we need to respond to. And we need to make sure that this doesn't become a financial crisis like we experienced in 2009 and 2010. And thankfully, we've done well on that account.
With the PPP program, I don't know how much information you can share about that. There's been some talk about those funds may have to be paid back in some sort of a manner. Do you have any updates on that?
So we have new regulation that's out that if you had a PPP loan that was $50,000 or under, the loan forgiveness piece is automatic for your payroll. So it's a very quite an expedited process. Over that, you still have to submit to verify that your payroll was what you stated at the beginning of the process. But those rules are now clear now. And so individual businesses that did get PPP loans should go to their financial institution or whether it's a fintech or a credit union or bank. Banks did the most volume, and I think responded really incredibly quickly to this. But reach out to them and get that process taken care of so that you don't have to worry about it. At the end of the day, if you submitted paperwork and it was accurate, your loan for your payroll piece will be forgiven. What we're trying to do is just make sure it's accurate, right? And what we don't want are fraudulent actors taking advantage of a good program. And so folks can move along and have confidence that they can move along in that process.
Oh, good. That's good to hear. It's just starting to bubble to the surface now with our banking industry. I was talking with and I was talking with an accountant as well, and we were discussing what that looked like now that the fervor's kind of died down and people got what they needed, even though there's still hopefully might be a second wave, but making sure that those are taken care of.
Well, another PPP program is needed, but that's not going to happen until November or December at least. Right. So we need to take care of this one and make sure we're responsive to folks right now as best we can.
Correct. Good. What other activities are you engaged in that you want to talk about today?
Well, I just want people to know that I'm around. It's so difficult right now because we don't have big gatherings. So, the normal things I'd be doing, I'm not. I'm Zooming rather than would rather be in person and having a business after hours rather than Zooming, or Facebook Living. So that's what I'm, trying to do is just engage with folks and let people know I'm here. I'll be responsive, and my team will be responsive, and we'll be helpful as we possibly can be in the midst of this whole thing. That's really the best thing I can say.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they need something?
My websites, it's mchenry.house.gov.gov. is my official website, and I'm on social media. Facebook's kind of crazy, but Twitter and Instagram. So you can find me there and find what I'm thinking about or what I'm working on through those means. And we'd love to have feedback. If there are things that I should be doing or ideas that you have for legislation or changes to regulation, that's where I get my best ideas, or from folks that have expertise in the area, and then we can go and try to get a change.
Right.
So that's what we're working on.
Well, I appreciate your time. We do a legislative agenda. We launched one we officially adopted it in February of this year, and I will share that with you so you can look at it, and we're going to probably start reviewing it to see if we need to update it. COVID's really brought a whole nother level of things to the surface that we had thought about, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
Broadband internet being one of those. It's on our legislative agenda before COVID even was, going on here. And so now it's really been instrumental with, especially with schools and people working from home. So it really has made that, those rural areas that really suffer with that come to light, and how we can bring more of that. So that's just one little area. But, if there's anything else that we should be looking at from the federal level, we'd love your input as well.
The infrastructure piece is so important. I mean, we know this. Statesville knows this because it's 77 and 40, right? It's obvious infrastructure matters to economic life. High-speed connection is also of that importance. I mean, it is in the midst of this virus, it is more important than our roads and bridges right now, right? And so I think it's really important we're thoughtful about how we enhance that build out and speed it up, because we have folks that live in denser communities, not even rural areas, that have a huge connectivity challenge. So let's remedy that. That's faster and cheaper, and it has an impact on most folks, and then build this thing out and make sure that rural communities have that next generation of technology that is faster. 5G deployment is going to be extraordinary for our phones. And likewise, we need to make sure we have physical infrastructure so people can be connected. So thank you for raising that. Thanks for your advocacy for the business community as well, Shannon, and great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today, Representative McHenry. And if there's anything we can do for you, you let us know. And we will, unfortunately, we couldn't get this live feed working today. There goes our internet was a little slow this morning, but we will.
Speaking of it, right?
And it might just be a critical. All the kids are online right now. But we will be putting this on our Facebook page here shortly, and it'll be live on our website as well. But thank you so much, and you're welcome to jump in and talk to us anytime.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks.